Today in Algebra 2, Chapter 2, Section 3, we are going to look at graphing equations of lines. The first part of this lesson is going to talk about the linear parent function. This is really important. You need to know what it is. It will be on the quiz. I'm going to ask the question on the quiz, what is the linear parent function? And you need to be able to write y equals x. What does the linear parent, how are we going to find the points that are on that graph? Let's make a table of values. When we make a table of values, the x values or the domain is on the left and the y values or the range is on the right. Okay, if we put in -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2, for x, what will our y value be? Well, the equation says y equals x. Okay, so if x is -2, y is -2. If x is -1, y is -1, and so on, because y equals x. Now, if we want to see what that looks like on the coordinate plane, we're just going to plot those points. -2, -2, -1, -1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, so on. We could do that forever. There will be an infinite number of points that we could put on there. Then we will draw the line through those to connect those points, and we will have a line. The next form that we want to look at is slope-intercept form. That is y equals mx plus b, where m, the letter m in this equation, represents the slope. Now remember, the slope can also be defined as the rise over the run. That's going to be very important to remember. B is your y-intercept. Y-intercept tells you exactly where that line is going to cross the y-axis. That's very important. Let's look at an equation. Y equals -2/3 x minus 1. Okay, the very first thing that we want to do is to identify the y-intercept. Okay, our y-intercept's at -1, so we're going to go to our graph and put a point on the y-axis at -1 because that is the y-intercept, and that is always going to be our starting point. I would write that down. I would know that the y-intercept is our starting point. From there, we need to know the slope. The slope is -2/3. Now remember, we said the slope was the rise over the run. So we had b, our y-intercept, was -1. That was our starting place. Now we know that m equals -2/3, which remember is our rise over our run. Okay, that being said, our rise is -2. So from that y-intercept that we have over here on the graph, we need to go down 2, and the run is 3, so we're going to go to the right 3. Okay, so we went down 2, we went to the right 3, and we put a point right there. We can do that again if we want to find another point. We can go down 2, and then to the right 3. Then we can draw a line through those points and see what our graph should look like. One more time. Our slope is negative, which means that our line should be falling to the right, and according to the graph that we just made, it does, so everything looks good. Our y-intercept is happening right here at -1, and then we went down 2, and then we went to the right 3 and put a point, and then we did it again, down 2, and to the right 3, and put another point, and then we drew a line through those points. Let's look at two more examples. In this first equation, y equals 5 plus x, we have the y-intercept that we can see is 5, and the slope, the coefficient of x, is 1. Okay, that's not really the standard way to write it, so if we want to rewrite it as y equals x plus 5, that's totally fine. Either way, it's the same equation, it just might be easier for you to see. So let's identify the slope and the y-intercept. The slope equals 1, which is, for slope purposes, for the matter of graphing, we could call that 1/1 so that we can identify the rise over the run. Okay, well, what's the y-intercept? Remember, the y-intercept is our starting point. Okay, the b part of this is 5. That means that's where we're starting on this coordinate plane. So the y-intercept being 5, we're going to go to our y-axis and put a point at 5 on that y-axis. The slope is 1, which means it rises 1 and it runs 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, and so on. And we could do this all day long because we would have an infinite number of points. You can draw your line through the points and to the ends, and there's your line. The second example on this page, y equals -x plus 2. Okay, our slope is -1, which we can make that -1 over +1, or we could actually switch it and make it +1 over -1. Either way, it doesn't matter. Remember, it is the rise over the run. The slope is the rise over the run, and I'll show you the significance of that when we graph it. Now, what is the y-intercept? The y-intercept, b, in this case, is 2. So we're going to go to the y-axis, okay, to the number 2 on the y-axis, and that's our starting point. The y-intercept is our starting point. From that point, the rise can be -1 over +1, and you can keep on doing that. -1 over +1. -1 over +1, or you could have chosen to start at your y-intercept and gone +1 and -1, +1 and -1. Either way is totally fine, because a positive over a negative gives you a negative, and a negative over a positive also gives you a negative. Either way will work, and you can double check your answer that way also. But again, your slope here is negative, so you would expect your line to be falling to the right, which it is. Over here on this green line, the slope is positive, so you would expect your line to be rising to the right, which it is. The last thing that we are going to talk about today is standard form. Standard form is ax plus by equals c. Okay, let's take a look at an example of that. If we have 5x plus 2y equals 10, that is standard form. Here is ax, the 2 would be your b, and c would be your 10. Ax plus by equals c. All right, that being said, what would be the easiest way to attack this to get it put on your coordinate plane to graph it? Okay, that way it's going to be to find the intercepts. So before we do that, let's just talk about your x-axis just a little bit. If you have any point on your x-axis, let's put one on here at, let's see, right here. That ordered pair is 1, 0. You could go all the way down and have these points, and every y value is 0. So to find the x-intercept from an equation, you would just simply have to put 0 in for y. On the flip side of that coin, if you want to find the y-intercept, let's take a look at these ordered pairs that are on the y-axis. All of their x values are 0, so here would be 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 4, and so on. So if you wanted to find the y-intercept, all you would have to do is substitute 0 in for x, and then you would solve for y, and that would give you your y-intercept. Let's go ahead and apply that. If we want to find our x-intercept, we are going to substitute 0 in for y. So let's just make a little table of values here. And if we want our x-intercept, we are going to put 0 in for y. When we do that, you're going to have 2 times 0 right here, which is 0. That's going to leave you 5x equals 10. Then you'll divide both sides by 5, and you will get x equals 2. So you have the ordered pair 2, 0. That will be your x-intercept. If you want to find the y-intercept, you put 0 in for x. When you substitute 0 in for x in this equation, 5 times 0 plus 2y equals 10. Well, 5 times 0 is 0, so that just goes away. It wipes out, and you are left with 2y equals 10. You'll divide by 2, and you get y equals 5. So now your y-intercept is at 5. We have 2 points, and we can put these ordered pairs on the graph and find our line. But here we have the ordered pair 2, 0. 2, 0 is the x-intercept. 0, 5. Okay, that is the y-intercept. Now you can draw a line between those points, and there's your line. So if your equation is in standard form, you want to find intercepts. If it's in slope-intercept form, then you need to find your y-intercept and then count your slope, your rise over your run from there. Okay, let's wrap this up. The first thing that we talked about was the linear parent function. It's the simplest of all linear functions. It is y equals x. The second thing that we talked about was slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept, and that's why they call it the slope-intercept form. It gives you the slope and the y-intercept. Your starting point is b, which is your y-intercept that you're going to plot on your graph, and then you will find your slope, which is your rise over your run. Stick a few more points and stick a line between it, slope-intercept form. thing we talked about was standard form, which was ax plus by equals c. In standard form, the easiest thing to do is to find your intercepts. How do you find your x-intercept? You put 0 in for y, and you solve for x. And then that gives you your x-intercept. To find your y-intercept, you put 0 in for x, you solve for y, that gives you your y-intercept and 2 points, and you stick a line through that. Those are the three main things you need to know. The linear parent function is y equals x. Slope-intercept form is y equal mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Standard form, ax plus by equals c. If you're going to graph from that, you need to find the intercepts. That should wrap this up. Have a good day.